Most people assume that when a legacy automaker finally enters the electric vehicle race late, it arrives desperate, slashing prices, cutting corners, begging for relevance. What Toyota just did in China is the exact opposite. The company spent 5 years being laughed at, dismissed, and written off while quietly engineering a trap. And when it finally sprung that trap, it didn't just compete with Tesla and BYD. It undercut them so severely that the entire industry had to stop and recalculate. For half a decade, the global automotive press had a favorite punching bag: Toyota. Column after column declared that clinging to hybrid technology while Tesla redefined what a car could be and BYD industrialized electric mobility at scale was a catastrophic miscalculation. The narrative was clean, satisfying, and almost universally accepted. Toyota was a dinosaur and the asteroid had already hit. Then came the BZ5. Launched in China, the BZ5 is a fastback crossover delivering 268 horsepower, up to 630 kilometers of range, a 15.6-inch high-resolution digital cockpit, 9 standard airbags, and an advanced driver assistance system drawing on up to 33 sensors, including an optional roof-mounted LiDAR unit. The price, 129,800 yuan, which works out to roughly $18,000. That is less than half the cost of a base Tesla Model Y. This is not a stripped-down economy car with a Toyota badge slapped on for comfort. The BZ5 measures 4,780 mm in length, 1,866 mm in width, and 1,510 mm in height, riding on a 2,880 mm wheelbase. Stack those dimensions against a Tesla Model Y, and they are nearly identical. This is a genuine mid-size crossover with a sloped fastback roofline and full-width LED lighting pulled directly from Toyota's earlier BZ Sport concept. That design detail matters because it tells you this car was not assembled in a panic. It had been sitting on the shelf, ready, waiting for the right moment to land. Under the skin, a front-mounted electric motor producing 200 kilowatts hit 268 horsepower and 330 newton-meters of torque drives the front wheels. Buyers choose between two battery configurations, a 65.28 kilowatt-hour blade battery, pack rated for 550 kilometers of range on the CLTC cycle, or a larger 73.98 kilowatt-hour pack stretching that figure to 630 kilometers. Plug into a 90 kilowatt DC fast charger and the battery climbs from 30 to 80% in roughly 27 minutes. That is a coffee break, not a lunch break. The interior matches the exterior promise. A 15.6-inch 2.5K central touchscreen sits alongside a fully digital instrument cluster. The Toyota Pilot Driver Assistance System, co-developed with Momenta's 5.0 platform, pulls data from up to 33 sensors. The optional LiDAR unit is the kind of hardware you would normally expect on a vehicle costing twice as much. Put it all together and the BZ5 is not slower, not smaller, not less connected, and not meaningfully less safe than cars priced $20,000 higher. That is the detail competitors should find genuinely alarming, not the price tag in isolation, but the fact that almost nothing was sacrificed to reach it. The BZ5 is the third vehicle in Toyota's Beyond Zero lineup, following the BZ3 sedan and the BZ4X. It is landing directly in the crosshairs of some of China's fiercest domestic competition, including the Leap Motor C10, the D-Pol S07, and the Model Y itself. To understand the appetite waiting in that price segment, consider what happened when a similarly priced EV from a rival legacy automaker's Chinese joint venture launched just months earlier. It reportedly pulled in more than 17,000 firm orders within its first month. That is what is sitting there for any automaker willing to compete on price rather than coast on brand prestige. Toyota just demonstrated it is willing to do exactly that. So how did Toyota pull this off without gutting the spec sheet? The answer is straightforward, and it is not particularly glamorous. Toyota stopped trying to out-engineer BYD on battery chemistry and simply bought from them instead. The BZ5 is built and sold through FAW Toyota, the joint venture between Toyota and China's first automobile works. That structure allows Toyota to manufacture specifically for the Chinese market, sourcing local components, negotiating local supplier pricing, and building on Chinese soil under Chinese cost structures rather than importing a global platform and absorbing the markup on every unit. The most consequential local supplier in that structure is BYD itself. The blade battery packs come from BYD's battery division. The electric motor comes from BYD's powertrain subsidiary. The chassis and architecture, however, are Toyota's own ETNGE platform, the same modular EV structure underpinning the brand's global electric push, delivering Toyota's engineering DNA, high structural rigidity, a low center of gravity, and battery placement engineered around the company's characteristically conservative safety philosophy. Think about what that actually means. Toyota did not spend a decade and billions of dollars attempting to reverse engineer lithium iron phosphate battery chemistry that BYD has spent more than 15 years perfecting at a scale no one else on the planet can currently match. Instead, Toyota made the pragmatic call: buy the best, most cost-effective, safest battery technology available on the open market and wrap it in Toyota's chassis tuning, ride quality calibration, and decades of accumulated brand trust. Two companies that are, by any reasonable definition, rivals. One Japanese, one Chinese, each dominant in a completely different discipline, joining forces to build something neither could have priced this aggressively alone. It is a lot less cinematic than the lone genius inventor story the EV industry loves to tell about itself. But as a business decision, it is brutally effective, and it is exactly the kind of move a company makes when it is optimizing for market share rather than narrative. Now here is where this stops being a story about one car in one country and starts being a story about who actually wins this decade. Start with the money, because the money tells the real story. In its most recent fiscal year, Toyota posted net income of roughly $25.4 billion. Tesla's full-year net income over the same period landed at $3.8 billion. Toyota is generating roughly 6 times Tesla's profit here, off the back of a business that a significant portion of the media had already declared obsolete. Hybrids are not a distraction for Toyota. They are the cash machine quietly funding everything else. In 2024, Toyota sold a record 10.8 million vehicles worldwide, marking its 5th consecutive year as the best-selling automaker on the planet, a streak since extended to 6 straight years. That volume generates enormous free cash flow every quarter. Cash that can comfortably absorb an $18,000 loss leader EV in China without a single emergency board meeting. A pure EV startup running the same playbook would be back on the phone with investors before the quarter closed. Then there is reach. Toyota's production network and more than 14,000 dealerships span over 170 countries. That is not a marketing slide. That is physical, logistical infrastructure built over roughly 70 years. Once Toyota's EV lineup is ready to scale globally, it can place vehicles in front of buyers on nearly every continent almost immediately. Sidestepping the delivery delays, service center shortages, and charging infrastructure gaps that have consistently slowed newer EV brands trying to build that same network from zero. Layer brand trust on top of that. Decades of reliability, data, low maintenance costs, and strong resale values mean the cautious first-time EV buyer, still nervous about battery degradation, still uncertain about what their car will be worth in 5 years, is far more likely to make that leap under a Toyota badge than an unfamiliar one. That psychological comfort is worth more in a mass-market transaction than almost any specification on a sheet. And then there is the card Toyota has not yet played: solid-state batteries. The company is publicly committed to commercializing the technology in the 2027 to 2028 window, targeting full charges in roughly 10 minutes and driving ranges pushing well past 1,200 kilometers on a single charge. If that timeline holds even approximately, it doesn't merely close the gap with BYD and Tesla on battery performance, it could leapfrog both of them entirely, turning today's charging anxiety into a historical footnote. Add it all together, and Toyota's supposed slowness looks considerably less like incompetence and considerably more like patience. This is a company generating roughly 6 times the profit of its most celebrated competitor, stacking infrastructure, brand equity, and next-generation battery technology while the industry was busy writing its obituary. A cash-strapped EV startup racing toward profitability has to simultaneously bet on unproven battery chemistry, unproven manufacturing scale, and unproven brand loyalty, with investors watching every single quarter. Toyota never had to make all those bets at once. It could let BYD win the battery race. It could let Tesla absorb the enormous cost of convincing the world that electric vehicles were desirable in the first place. Then it stepped in carrying the one thing neither company possesses: 70 years of manufacturing discipline and a balance sheet that can absorb a loss leader without anyone noticing. That is not a company that missed the future. That is a company that watched everyone else pay to build the road, then drove onto it debt-free. And to be fair, this is not a costless strategy. China's EV price war has been brutal on margins across the board. Toyota itself has projected its own profitability sliding as it fights for share in that market, and several legacy automakers have posted outright losses there over the past year. An $18,000 crossover is not a high-margin product regardless of who builds it, but that is precisely what makes the strategy so ruthless. Toyota can treat the BZ5 as a loss leader beachhead, a way to plant its flag and build manufacturing muscle memory inside China's EV market, while hybrid profits elsewhere absorb the hit. Tesla doesn't have that option. Every Model Y Tesla sells has to carry its own weight, because Tesla does not have a 10.8 million unit hybrid business quietly subsidizing the fight. The BZ5 proves something this industry needed demonstrated for years. Electric vehicles do not have to be a luxury statement for the wealthy, and they do not have to be a compromise for everyone else. Tesla lit the spark that started this entire revolution, and that credit is fully deserved. But it may genuinely be Toyota's methodical, spreadsheet-driven pragmatism that ultimately puts electric cars into the hands of the billions of people on this planet who are never going to pay $40,000 for one. So here is the question worth sitting with. Was this the plan all along? A deliberate decade-long step back to set up a leap forward? Or did Toyota simply get bailed out by BYD's battery technology arriving at exactly the right moment? Drop your answer in the comments. This is one of those debates where reasonable people land in very different places, and that is exactly why it is worth having. If you want more deep dives into what is actually happening beneath the automotive headlines, subscribe now, because next up, we are going after the Chinese automaker most Western buyers have never heard of, and why it may be the one that both Detroit and Tokyo should genuinely be watching most closely. You do not want to miss that one. Hit subscribe, leave a like if this changed how you see the EV race, and we will see you in the next one.